Now, on the programme this morning, we have a lot to talk about, and we're going to go straight to it because I want to talk about the issue of Facebook. Now, for those of you who are on Facebook, it's seen as a social networking service that is very much part and parcel, particularly of younger people's lives, where you can, I suppose, interact with your friends and family, let them know what you're doing, put up pictures of yourself and what you're at, and all of that. And generally speaking, in theory, the whole facet of Facebook is very positive. However, there are difficulties, and we've been highlighting these to you over the last number of years, a number of complaints about the social networking site, and the fact, I suppose, that pornography, the issue of younger people accessing Facebook and maybe giving away kinds and pieces of information that at maybe the ages of 8, 9, 10 and 11 they shouldn't be giving. So there are difficulties with it. And I'm joined on the line this morning by Max Schrems, who is spokesperson for the Europe versus Facebook group. And as I mentioned, Facebook is to be audited by the Data Protection Commissioner because of a number of complaints about social networking, this particular networking site. First of all, Max, thanks for joining us and good morning.
Good morning from Vienna.
You're in Vienna, are you?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, I hope the weather in Vienna is better than the weather in Ireland, Max.
It is quite good. It's sunny and we don't have a single cloud when I look up there.
Okay. Anyway, thanks for joining us. As I say, there are lots of positives with Facebook and we don't want to paint a bleak picture, but the reality is that beneath the surface some very, very serious issues are emerging.
That's exactly our point as well. Like, I love to use Facebook and I'm constantly on it pretty much. But what I did is I accessed my data at Facebook so you can have a copy of your data and have it sent to you. The one weird thing about it was that it was 1,200 pages in my case, which is like an enormous amount. Like no CIA or KGB ever had such an amount of data just about a single normal person. And
so the bottom line is that there's an awful lot of information that anybody out there can access about you.
That's not entirely correct. Not anybody can access it. But for example, all the stuff is stored in the U.S., so you don't know if like U.S. authorities can access it or not, because after 9/11, they can pretty much access anything. The other thing is that we all know that social networking sites or just generally internet sites get hacked sooner or later. There's just no total security online. That's the reason why we were pushing for some function to like delete all content from Facebook. For example, in my case, a lot of the stuff is 2 or 3 years old, and no one actually needs that stuff anymore, but it's still there, and Facebook keeps on to it. And we try to get Facebook to have something like digital forgetting, so that you don't have to worry about the stuff you posted like 3 years ago or something. What really outraged us, though, is that even though I personally delete all my old stuff, Facebook was still keeping a lot of it. And that is kind of a real problem, and it's clearly illegal from our standpoint, because Facebook, what it does is it just marks things as deleted. So you get the data print, and it says, this message, blah, blah, from to, and then it says deleted true, and the message comes up. And you're sitting there, and you kind of, if deleted is true, the whole message shouldn't be there at all. And that's kind of real scary because you really don't know what they're keeping, and they tell you can delete any time, and it's all it's all not a big problem. But when you then dig a little deeper, you see that they don't delete stuff.
And you believe now that there should be some onus put on Facebook, the people behind Facebook, to actually either delete information or at least advise the likes of the people whose information they're storing as to the amounts of information they have.
Yeah, what we just want to have is more transparency and more user control. Because, like, from the European standpoint in general, it is the way legally that you as the user have control over your own data. And that's very different in the U.S. They more have the idea of whoever has the data has control over it. And I think that Facebook is still, like, just doing it the American way, but in fact they're doing business all over Europe and make a bunch of money here. And that's kind of the reason why we called it Europe versus Facebook, saying, guys, if you make, millions here, just stick to our law. And the funny thing about it is that Ireland actually becomes the battleground about it, because in Ireland there's the headquarters for any operation of Facebook outside of the U.S. and Canada. So actually for all users outside of the U.S. and Canada, Irish law applies. And that's the reason why we filed the complaint in Ireland.
Do you believe that there should be some onus put on parents to ensure that children, say under the age of 15 or 12, shouldn't use Facebook?
Actually, Facebook says that you're not allowed to use it if you're younger than 13, I think. The problem is it's kind of hard to control because anyone can put in any birth date, and kids that are 11 years old are smart enough to put like a younger birth date in. I don't think that it should be forbidden because actually it's like a cool tool. It just should be transformed in a way that you don't have to worry about every single click you're doing. And that's kind of the problem we're facing right now, that Facebook is, instead of just deleting old data and just, trying to do data minimization, they're trying to do data maximization and they're, storing more and more and more. And it becomes just a huge archive of your whole life. And as we all know, there is like little sins in use or whatever that you just don't want to, talk about 10 years later. But on Facebook, it's kind of hard to get rid of all that.
But is there a hidden agenda here? I mean, what's in it for Facebook to retain as much information about you as they have?
Data is, first of all, information is power over you. And that's interesting for a company as well as for like the government or something. The other thing is that data is also for them like a raw material out of which you can make a lot of money. And that's the whole data mining industry. That is not that big in Europe as in the U.S. And they're pretty much, because I studied in the U.S. the last half a year, so I kind of have an idea of what they're talking about. Their idea is more, the more data I have, the more I can generate out of it. And the more I can generate, the more money I can make by selling advertisements, by all that kind of stuff.
Okay, you're representing a group called Europe versus Facebook, and I understand that you've taken over 20 complaints about the way that the website does retain this user information. And one of the main complaints is that the like button, this is, in other words, if you like this person who wants to become one of your friends, when you press that like button, it actually creates data that can be used to track users all over the internet, and that tags can be applied without the consent of the user, and that pokes and posts and pictures and messages can still be seen after they're actually deleted. That's the bottom line.
No, the like button is a whole different story, actually. There was an German authority that analyzed it, and what they found out is that they said if there's a like button on some website, let's say some newspaper website or something else, there are oftentimes these Facebook like buttons. And Facebook knows who is actually clicking on that page, no matter if who is just visiting the page, no matter if you're clicking the button or not, and no matter if you're a member of Facebook or not. So pretty much just spying on anyone that just visits some random web page. And as a visitor, you don't even know if there's a like button on there before you visit, so you don't have any choice of, deciding if Facebook gets the data or not. That's the thing about the like button. And the other thing is pretty much like the non-deletion, and they're just not generally sticking to Irish law. There is, for example, in the Irish law, the principle that you have to agree on your data use. And on Facebook, it's oftentimes just an opt-out, so you have to run after Facebook to get them to stop using your data, while the law says Facebook has to run after you to, get an agreement with you to use your data. And pretty much it's just turning everything around, and so far no one did anything.
There is a saying here in Ireland, you can't have, you can have your cake and also want to eat it. But, at the end of the day, couldn't Facebook argue that if you embrace the concept and they want to hold on to as much data as they wish, so what?
So what? It's simply illegal, Anyone else has to stick to the law, and it's kind of weird that a big company is just saying, the law does not apply to us. And one thing you got in mind as well is that European social networking sites that have been pretty big, for example, in Germany, are totally out of the market because they do stick to the law, and Facebook just doesn't. And that's also an issue of like fair market competition. We tell all the European companies you got to stick to all these laws, and there's an American company that makes a bunch of money not sticking to any of it. There's also like a market issue involved in it. And the other thing is, we all know that all this data is sooner or later going to be out. Like in Austria, we just had it with our health insurance companies. They got all their data in the internet and all that kind of stuff. And sooner or later, that's going to happen there too. And the less data there is, the less the impact is going to be. That's kind of the point why we say you should delete as much as possible.
Okay, so delete. That's the big message if you're on Facebook, because all of this information, this data is being stored by Facebook. And I know that the Data Protection Commissioner is due to publish his findings, I think, before the end of the year. Is that right?
And that's what they're aiming for. Right now, we don't really know where it's all going to end, because it's just a huge case. And the Data Protection Commission is not the biggest authority I've ever seen, as it is in the other countries. That's kind of the problem, that we don't put enough money into like authorities overlooking it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how long it takes, but I'm pretty positive that they're taken very seriously in Ireland, and we're very happy about that.
Okay, very good. Max, if people want more details, I presume if you Google Europe v Facebook, you'll get details. Do you have a website?
Yeah, it's Europe-v-Facebook.org, but you better just Google it.
Yeah, just if you Google Europe v Facebook group, you'll get full details. Max, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks a lot.
And greetings to all of our friends over in Vienna today. That's Max Schrems there, spokesperson for Europe versus Facebook group. So look, the bottom line there, as Max says, if you are on Facebook, delete is what it's all about, so that all of this information about you isn't being stored by Facebook. As Max says in his case, what is it, 1,200 pages of information about him since he became a subscriber of Facebook not that many years ago.